Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me today is Logan Stump. How are you today, Logan?
Oh, I am living the dream, Jordan. I am. Football is life, Football is life. So I'm living on a high.
Wrong one. Wrong show. We're not talking
Oh,
Ted Lasso
yes,
today.
right,
We're
correct. But
talking.
football is still life.
Yeah, we are recapping all of the fun games that happened this weekend. And as a Union fan, I use that loosely. Uh, and as an Orlando fan for Logan, he uses that
Very
loosely as well.
loosely.
Uh, it's been fun for some teams, right? Cincy's having fun. Atlanta's having fun. St. Louis had their first dosage of no fun as they lose their first game. Minnesota's having fun. They're undefeated on the road. And near the top of the league, as Jack C. Prasad has been saying, Adrian Heath's a tactical genius. I think that's a stretch, but we'll we'll talk some Minnesota and what's working for them without Reynoso. And yeah, lots of good stuff to talk about. But before we dive into that and the spectacular Vancouver performance as well, there was some updated news that we didn't talk about, I think, last time. But, they announced the All-Star Game. Tickets already sold out, apparently. July 19th at Audi Field. And they're still doing the skills challenge. But, Logan, it's no longer Liga Mekis versus MLS. It is Arsenal, who might be EPL champs, coming over in the summer to face off against the All Stars of MLS. What is your thoughts here on diving back into facing a foreign club instead of Liga Mekis? I think we talked about it before when it was rumored that I remember I was very pro this because I feel like with Leagues Cup and CCL and all the stuff that we've been doing in partnership with Liga Mekis, the last two All-Star games being Liga Mekis versus MLS. The first year was really fun. Last year felt like it was just kind of a retread, I feel. So I'm kind of happy to be back to this. But I also would really love an East West All-Star game, like Major League Baseball. I think that can be much more fun. You can get a lot more stars and a lot more deserving players making the All-Star game for once.
Yeah, I mean, I'm agreeing with you in the fact that the League of Mekis. We see them all the times now with Leagues Cup, Concacaf Champions League. We play them all sorts of times, like El Tri in the Mexican national stage, and so I think that playing the English is fun. I think playing Arsenal will be a lot of fun because I do think they're going to win their Premier League unless they have a historic collapse. They're only 9 games away from winning it, and I think there are 8 points in between them and City. So no, I'm excited to kind of see what Arsenal has, and I think playing against I think Rooney coaches them because it's the DC team or it's in DC, so I think it'll be a lot of fun. The connections that'll be made between some of the players that also were English players at one point in their careers, probably. I don't know. I'm excited to kind of see how it goes. I'm excited to get back to this international stage, just playing European teams with MLS All Stars. But like you said, Jordan, I think it'd be a lot more fun if the teams were East and West. And I do think as the league grows, I think as we get one more team, I think they'll start to kind of consider maybe doing an East and West conference All-Star game, or even if they did what the NBA does. I mean, I think that's more appealing to MLS fans compared to maybe playing like an Arsenal or a Manchester United or something like that. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn in between which one is better for the league.
I think this is better for the league if we're talking about getting casuals to watch, right? Like an Arsenal fan that's based in the US
Yeah.
may watch that more than just an East versus West. But one thing that kind of interests me, Logan, is I can't tell you who was an all-star player in certain years. Yeah, but I can still tell you certain Pro Bowlers, certain MLB All-Star because those are a little held to more regard, right? Like when we talk about a baseball player, and I pointed to my screen because I'm watching Phillies Yanks at the same time here. But when you're talking about baseball, right? There's times where we're talking about Hall of Fame candidacy, and we're talking how many All Stars they've been in, how many Gold Gloves, all that kind of stuff. MLS does not have that criteria at all. Soccer as a whole, there's no like all-star game over in the EPL, though they've talked about it because they see how it can work. It would be fun to see. I don't know how you divvy up the all-star game in like an EPL type thing. Do you do top half of the table versus bottom of the half of the table? When do you do, do you do north versus south? Like, how do you divvy that up, right? That would be interesting to see how they would ever do that. If they've talked about it, it'd be interesting to see how they do that. But I wish it did mean more. Now I know, of course, All Star games as a whole have kind of been going by the wayside, right? And I mean by that viewership. Pro Bowl pretty much went to touch football because nobody nobody cares to watch it. But we still count it, right? Like we still count it in the sense of he's a 4-time Pro Bowler. Even if he didn't play in the game, name to the team, and they say that, we don't get to really do that with MLS All Star. Also, because the way that they pick the squads a lot of times is just to showcase the biggest stars. A lot of times you're not getting someone that actually deserves to be on the team. There was the year that Steven Gerrard came over and immediately was named to the All-Star team, right? Frank Lampard immediately named to the All-Star team. And that's kind of bogus, right? They hadn't even played maybe 1 or 2 games for their club at that point. But it's really about showcasing to the casuals. And if that's what we're focused on, then I think this method works better than Liga Mekis versus MLS. I think that was fun for 2 years. But if we were to keep doing it that way, I think it would get to the point of super repetitive. Especially then when you take a whole break in the summer for Leagues Cup. Like this would be, we just get back from Leagues Cup and we're like, it's the All-Star game versus Liga Mekis again. You'd be like, we just saw all these guys, right? So that's why I feel like they made the pivot. And I do think it's a good choice. I don't think that talks with Arsenal a long time ago. I think it's working out pretty well. A really great season. I think this makes it more interesting. The fact that Arsenal might actually be the Premier League title holder when they come over. The same way that when Chelsea came over in 2012, they just won the Champions League. So, that'll be interesting to see how they handle. I'm rooting for Arsenal to win the title. I think that'd be a lot of fun seeing a different team that hasn't won something in a long time win it. And then especially if they come over, they might bring the trophy. So if you're there, you might be able to get your picture with it. Like I got my picture with FA Cup and the Champions League in 2012 because I won those. So, it'll be really interesting to see what it is. But this is at Audi Field. This is at DC. I guess you're right. It might be Rooney coaching.
Yeah, because the promos had Rooney like holding the jerseys and stuff. So
probably
with Mikel Arteta. So I'm wondering if that's going to be the case.
I think that's how they do it.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, because Curtin coached the one in Philly. Was it Curtin back then in 2012?
They should just have like
may have been somebody else.
Matias Almeida coach, just for the hell of it. The halibut.
Okay, so before we talk about the next topic I kind of want to talk about is real quick the skills challenge. Do you think that this is? It's only $15 tickets apparently. I don't know if those sold out yet, but is the skills challenge still for you? Are you excited to see them take on Arsenal in a skills challenge?
Absolutely not. I don't know. Nothing about a skills challenge ever enticed me. Like even when the NBA does it, I've even grown to not like the slam dunk competition or the 3-point competition. I don't know. Something about the skills thing just doesn't sit right with me. Just because it seems very glorified. People try to show off a little too much. It becomes just not as serious, and it's really hard to take those things kind of seriously. But maybe have like, I don't know, like it'd be kind of fun to have maybe some of these YouTubers go up against some of the MLS skills people, like they did with the 3-point shootout, I think it was, or dunk competition, where they had people that were also like YouTube famous for doing things with the soccer ball. I think that would be a lot of fun. Just have them compete in a competition against some of the pros, because I think we're to the point now where pros are like, yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys can do a lot of these skill things. Maybe not have the strength or clinical finishing or stuff like that that compete in the league, but no, nothing about it though. Like, can you imagine going and seeing Gabriel Jesus play or go up against like a Chicharito? Like, I just can't imagine that'd be fun to watch. Like, I'd just be like, okay, like, what are they gonna do? Dribble the ball and hit it into a trash can? Like, I don't really understand the skills challenge. Never have, never really liked them. So I know it's pretty negative, but yeah. So I don't know. I think the All Star game, yes, enticing, but with as far as I guess people playing a skills competition, just I don't know. I lose interest in it. I just don't think it's going to be anything that's going to be helpful to watch, or anything that'll have to do that. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be interesting too. I mean, Arsenal fans, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You are coming over to play in the United States, I think, to kind of start a preseason tour. And I think that's exciting. I think a lot of times when, players come over from Europe, I think it's a good showcase of what that talent looks like. And I think it helps out the United States fans. So to be able to see Arsenal come over, see the skills and the abilities, have that press tour. Like, I think it'd be even more fun to have kind of like that press tour where you're really hyping this thing up, bring them through Apple TV, really hype up their arrival. I think, kind of just doing like a story on who Arsenal, the club, are, to kind of hype up the whole thing, and just kind of have this media press event before the actual event. I think that'd be a lot more fun. And then I think All-Star Game essentially gets to live entertainment and stuff at halftime. So if you could kind of find somebody that's going to be able to present a halftime show, I think that'd be kind of cool too.
All right. So the next topic here is this in the rounds yesterday. This was a tweet from MLS Gone Wild, which is safe for work. It's not an unsafe for work thing. I know the title thinks so. But yeah, they said that they have a sources. Man, they tweet a lot, so I'm just trying to find the exact wording here. They said that they had sources of them being a little Apple being a little upset with the number of people that have signed up. I guess it's 30% under what they had thought. But yeah, I look, I wouldn't be shocked if this was true, right? Like if they were under projections. But we're 6 weeks in. Right? 6 weeks in, and the first year of the contract, and I mean, it grow. I think it is going to grow. I wouldn't if it's under, because just the fact that, look, MLS is niche, right? Like, this is a very niche league. It's starting to get some more publicity, right? When people were able to point and laugh at Philly losing 3 championships, right? Then it was a major sport, right? Then it was, oh, this makes it look funny if we say they've lost 3 finals. So in that case, it worked. But I've seen them talk about them on CBS when they're talking about how good the Eagles were. They talked about the Union, so it is growing. Fox brought it up. CBS being a big one because they actually had no MLS rights. So the fact that they even brought it up made me feel better than like Fox bringing it up. Fox has those MLS rights. So people panicking, saying that, there's rumors that Apple has an out in the deal and all that stuff. I don't think Apple would trigger that right now. In fact, they'd probably wait. It's a 10-year deal. If they don't see a big increase by the 2026 World Cup, I think that is when you could see them conceivably pulling a trigger on an out clause, because by then it'd be like 3 seasons in, you have a huge bump with the World Cup. If you're not seeing any growth then, Apple might be a little worried. But I don't know. It looks like they may have deleted the tweet. I can't find it. I can't find the original tweet.
I'm thinking maybe, well, the one I sent you was retweeted from somebody. And
yeah, but I saw the original one yesterday, and I went to their actual page, and I don't see it.
Well, that might be why they took it down. But it was retweeted by somebody, and it said, per sources, MLS Gone Wild has stated that Apple had only.
Tactical manager. No, the tweet's still there. Why didn't I see it then? It's weird. Tactical manager retweeted it. USM&T thoughts retweeted. Like, all these people, of course, retweeted it. It's got 414 quote tweets, by the way, and 147 regular retweets. So the source that they said was an employee working within season pass live events. So, I mean, look, it could be true. They haven't, to my knowledge, before ever broken any big news like this. So I would be shocked if somebody let it go to them instead of like The Athletic. I feel like somebody else would be breaking this story if it was that big of a deal. What I assume is maybe it's like a lower level employee that's just heard things, that is friends with somebody that is saying this stuff. I mean, that would be like us breaking news, right? Like, I don't think if we started putting out breaking news, people would actually believe it until we start getting a track record of being right. And the bad thing about this stat and the bad thing about this tweet, of if you're MLS Gone Wild, is there's no way to prove it, right? That's why people usually will run stories that can be proved right soon, right? Like when we used to chat with Chris Smith before he left covering MLS, he had sources. He would be able to, say something like, this person's moving to this place. Once they did, it's verified that he's legit. That's the bad thing about this, is that you kind of set yourself up of like, there's no way to prove it. So you do have people calling them liars in the tweets, which is a little overboard. You have people, taking it for granted, like straight up as fact. And then I think you got to kind of handle this as more of a could be true, could be false, right? Like, this isn't an account that hates MLS. He has a podcast about MLS. So it's not like this is coming from, is not like a fan of this, right? So I'm sure that's what he's hearing. But again, it's just all who is actually saying this and how can we verify it? We can't, unfortunately, unless if Apple comes out, or if another place that's verified with sources, like a journalist, comes out and says that they've heard the same thing. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, in the sense of the good news, that this hasn't been broken by a bigger outlet, because that might lend more credence to the thing, is that it actually, it hasn't been verified. So I don't think Apple's going to go like full nuclear on it yet. I know some people are like, they're going to pull out like in the middle of the season. I'm like, that's not going to happen. That's way too soon. They bought a 10-year deal. They know what they're trying to get into here.
Yeah, the tweet alone has 1.5 million views, so we're already past the 40%. I think Apple intended to have. No, but um, yeah, this is tough because it's like when a smaller account like us, if we were to tweet something again, unless it's proven, it's really kind of hard to go after that and kind of one disprove it and call the person a liar, or two, kind of go after the person and say, "Wow, you're right. Like, I can't believe you were correct. I mean, what's your source? How'd you get it? What happened?" Um, I think he's got enough ins where he's talked to players, he's talked to clubs. I don't know them personally. We've never had them on the show, but I think
We've had guests on there, so like
right,
we run
yeah.
in the same circles. Yep.
Yeah, but it is interesting because it's like with this one, you're never going to have this proven. Apple's never going to come out and say this because one, that'll be a sign of weakness, and they're already trying to entice the NFL. So it's not like Apple's going to, and I think that's another thing. Apple's not going anywhere because they're still trying to prove that they can host a big league like this because they've already gone after MLB. They want NFL's content, like they want
We've already
NFL.
lost the NFL deal though.
Do they really?
Yeah, YouTube got it.
Oh, well then hell. But they're still trying to grab leagues. Like I'd imagine Apple's still trying to grab leagues and MLS.
They want like EPL and stuff.
Yeah, I can see that.
They've
Yeah.
rumored, that they want European leagues.
Yeah. I think NHL too was one they were interested in at one point.
Yeah,
but I don't know how that
they
all
went
works.
to Turner.
Yeah,
and ESPN.
right. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to kind of see.
Well, so then I saw a lot of people crapping on the setup that we have in the league, right? So I want to ask your questions on this. We're 6 weeks in, Logan, right? 6 games in. I've seen now a lot of people say, "Hey, I actually thought I would like all these games at once, but by the time I get home, there's no game on, or I have to pick and choose. Like if I don't watch my team, and then after that, all the 7:30 games are over." But 6 weeks in, I'm still liking, and people want them to spread it out from like 12 to 12, pretty much. And to be honest, I can't do that every week. I can't. I can't sit down every Saturday from 12 to 12 and just watch MLS. I've got places I need to go. I've got people I need to see, right? I got other shows I need to catch up on. I'm liking the fact that on Saturdays, I pretty much know that I don't have to turn on the TV till 7:30, and I can done all my chores. I can go out and like go to lunch or whatever without worrying about missing a game. So for me, I'm still liking all these games. It sucks, yes, if you are a season ticket holder and then you come home after dealing with traffic and dealing with parking, and then there's only the 10 o'clock game on. But for me, just we've already had some games that started at 12. We've already had some games that started at like 4, right? So we do get those occasionally if Fox chooses that time. We've had games on Sunday. I know some people want more games on Sunday. But do you think that it has people think that has an effect on people subscribing? I don't think that does. But I guess 6 weeks in, are you liking the schedule? I still have a complaint with MLS 360 having lots of commercials. I don't think we should have commercials on a soccer whip around show. Take the commercial at halftime.
Yeah, I know. It's tough because it's like it's only a couple, or we're only like a month and a half in. So it's really kind of tough to see how it's working and how well it's working and what's not working. I think some things down the road. I think what all leagues have done is they've allowed the opportunity for you to just subscribe to a team specifically and cut the cost, so that way you can watch your team play for a cheaper price. And I know there's a lot of people that do that because they don't have interest in really watching much of the other teams, or maybe there's an option to pay for the Eastern Conference because that'd be kind of cool, but Eastern Western. But then they're like, what happens when they play each other? So that's a good question. But I think there's ways that they can kind of manipulate this to make it more affordable for people. I think that's one thing that was such a big fuss, was that it was a little bit more expensive because it was up there with some of the bigger leagues around the country, and it's not quite there in popularity yet. So I think that kind of bugged people. But if you're an Apple TV Plus subscriber, we got it cheaper, and it was, I think, a good deal. But yeah, no, I don't think honestly, I don't think start time and stop time really have anything to do with it. They have a whip around show, and then soccer. I mean, even people that cover the leagues, those 360s and recaps and the episodes that drop, and then the ability to go back and now watch the 360 show if you really want. It's all on playback, so it is. I think it's all on demand now, and so it's stuff that you can go and watch. I don't think, like Jordan, I can never remember a time sitting there from, like, unless I was sick or something, sitting from noon to midnight watching these games and trying to predict like what games I need to watch, and like, oh, there's one at 1, now there's one at 4 and one at 8, and I was like, oh
And
my
they
gosh, I
still
gotta sit here.
overlapped. You'd have two
A little
games at
bit, yeah.
3, one at 3:30.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have a game on Twitter that you would
5:31.
have to watch on
Yeah.
Twitter. I mean,
But
it
I was
was a
never
mess.
watching all the games though. Like I wasn't watching game to game. Like, but now I can pick out a game or switch back and forth between 2 games or 3 games, and they're all in the same timeline, and it's exciting because there's excitement, there's action everywhere you turn. So
Right, I'm a hardcore MLS fan, but sometimes it can be too much, right? If you're
right.
like, you know, there's some days where you're like, I don't watch it from 12 to 12. I've got, a movie I want to go see. I'm going to, do this thing or that thing. So, sometimes you just need like um a break. And what this new schedule gives me is pretty much free reign on my Saturday until 7:30. And then sometimes the power goes out and I get free reign for another hour or two because I can't watch anything. That happened to me this weekend. I watched like the first half of LA and Seattle because the Union got pushed back of tornadoes and storms and stuff. And then I was like, all right, let's turn on that Union game. And within about 5 minutes, the power goes out, flickering. It just flickered, came back on. I turn it right back on after the internet connects after a few minutes, and then flickered again. Everything turned off. Now the Wi-Fi is resetting again. And then I'm like getting it back up, and then it did it again. I'm like, all right, I'm waiting until this thing gets situated. Eventually did, and I got to watch the second half. But oh my goodness, that was absolutely wild. Wild Saturday here. It was like rain, hail. We got some hail. We had some high winds. It was a crazy day. And it was like still 70 degrees. It felt nice, but it was a crazy Saturday. And it was a crazy Saturday in the league. Vancouver, Montreal 5-0 as Montreal continue to struggle. But what we want to highlight with this Vancouver game, of course, was player of the match day for Matchday 6, Simon Becker, who scored one? How many did he score? 1, 2. He scored 2 goals and had an assist. And it was like his first game. Or not his first game, I guess, but it was a fast start to his career, they wrote here, but he was the fastest player, here you go, in MLS history to reach 4 career tallies. And he hit that milestone in just 87 minutes of game time. So he hasn't played a lot this season. I guess when you're looking at 6 games and only playing 87 minutes, but 2 goals and an assist. Gets player of the week. He's got 4 goals on the season and 4 goals in his career and in just 87 minutes of game time. So what a great story that was. Vancouver just absolutely slaughtered Montreal. Montreal sit with just 3 points on the season. Those 3 points, of course, came when they faced the Union. They sit bottom of the East. It is a mess here. It's almost like looking at the EPL from 12th place down at this point with how everything is bunched up. That's, of course, because it's a young season still. But, I mean, really, some of these teams like Colorado who have 3 points are 3 points off of a playoff spot right now. And Colorado's been awful. So this is a weird season so far. But Atlanta beat New York 1-0. That came from a goal from Yakamakis 8 minutes in. He's getting some goals now as Atlanta now have a little bit of a rebound after losing pretty big to the Crew. The Crew win big again. They beat Salt Lake 4-0. RSL's very bad so far. Cincinnati beat Miami 1-0. Seattle beat LA 2-1. Jordan Morris scoring another goal. The LA fans, of course, not showing up. They're still doing their little boycott, which is hurting, I feel like, the team. New England and New York City tie or draw 1-1. Nashville beat Orlando 2-0. I think I said that game was going to be did I say that one was going to be a 0-0?
Yeah. 0-0 draw.
I also said that about the Union. I was right on that one, by the way. But Nashville figured out how to score some goals again. So they Fafa Picault scoring a goal, and then Hani Mukhtar scoring a goal. So really, if it's you, you're probably in some trouble. Philly, 0-0. They couldn't even pass the ball, Logan. They couldn't even string passes together at home against a really bad Sporting Kansas City. It's like everybody knows how to play them now. It's a little worrying if you're a Union fan. TFC drew with Charlotte 2-2. TFC had a lead, 2-0 lead. The Olympiaco goal from Bernadeschi from the corner. Cool. I was on it popped up in my suggested from the TFC subreddit. Somebody was at the game and they were behind the corner flag and they filmed the corner, and it looks so more crazy with how far out it goes and then comes right back into the goal. It was absolutely beautiful. Really cool that somebody got that on film. But Charlotte make a comeback and draw. Chicago drew with DC 0-0. Dallas drew with Portland 1-1. St. Louis lost their first game of the season to Minnesota. Like I said before, Minnesota has a perfect away record. The only other team that have a perfect record, Logan, St. Louis on the road. So St. Louis still sit first, by the way, because they had such a hot start to the season. And then we have Colorado drew with LAFC 0-0. San Jose beat Houston 2-1. And then, like I said before, Vancouver stomping Montreal 5-0. Where does that leave us so far? Top of the East, Cincinnati with 14 points. They are 3-0 at home. They have one win on the road and 2 draws on the road. So a good start. They're also an undefeated team, Cincinnati's having a good season so far. Atlanta in second with 13 points. New England in third with 13. Columbus in fourth with 10. Nashville in fifth with 10. NYCFC in sixth with 8. Orlando in seventh with 8. And Philadelphia in 8th with 7. And Toronto, even with blowing leads like they've done, they sit 9th and in a playoff spot with 7 points. Outside of the playoff spots are Miami in 10th with 6. Chicago in 11th with 6. Red Bulls in 12th with 6. DC in 13th with 5. Charlotte 14th with 5. And Montreal in 15th with 3. Is there anything that jumps out to you? We're still early in the season, but when we look at it, Logan, there is now a 7-point gap from 7-point gap from 1st to 9th. So we're starting to see some separation at the top as Cincinnati and Atlanta continue to do really good things.
I think the obviously the Union, but I think that's an obvious one just because the fact that, I mean, they're just not playing like the cream of the crop of the East anymore. But I think a lot has to do with just them trying to figure out, what that schedule looks like, what a CONCACAF Champions League can do to a team. We've seen that. We've seen a very good Seattle team who pretty much was the same as they are this year. Absolutely tank it last year just because they had CCL and they've got a lot of competitions. I don't know what it is. It's just I think the focus, the energy is put so much into CCL, and they can talk about it all they want that it's not an important competition, or they're going about each one in the same way, but obviously they're a little bit different. I don't buy that. I think there's a heavy focus on I think winning these Champions League games, because it's the same way in Europe. In Europe, there's a lot of teams that'll say that they're putting an emphasis on the Champions League, and that's kind of why they've kind of faltered in the league. And I just don't buy that. I'm buying the fact that the focus is. I mean, think about it. There's not been a team that's gone successfully into the Club World Cup final, and I think the Union have interest in doing that. I think Jim Curtin wants to prove that he can win not only domestically but internationally as well, because I think there's interest in him around the world in all sorts of different jobs and positions. I think there's going to be a lot of people after him, but I think the Union are a big surprise. But Jordan, the biggest surprise for me, especially in the Eastern Conference, and we both picked them to be really high this year, are the New York Red Bull. They just don't look to be a team that's going to score. And they're not a team that scores a ton of goals, but they score enough and defend well enough, obviously, to really push the envelope. But I think because they have not had the presence of Lewis Morgan out due to injury, they've not had that guy up top that just is able to create and score. They think that's coming over, right, in their DP and Venzier, and he's only gotten a chance and has scored a chance. But really, you think that in the amount of minutes that he's played so far, that he would have more of a production. He hardly ever plays. He's not really. I think Gerhard Struber said he's not match fit, which is really odd, because it's like, okay, you're now a month in, and this guy's not match fit. Who's your DP signing? And there doesn't seem to be an issue with him. It just seems to be like, why aren't you fit to play in 90 minutes? And I think it's more because it just doesn't fit the system. And I think the system in which the Red Bull play, they try to put you in dangerous positions defensively. They try to press, and if they don't get chances defensively and get you into a bad spot, they're not going to score. So they're the biggest shock to me, because I thought easily they would contend with the Union, but they just don't get the production that they need to be a top team in the East yet.
Yeah, I'm looking at Montreal. I'm not good at statistics and stuff, but they already given up 12 goals, by the way. Same thing as RSL's getting 13.
It's a lot.
They're 5 and 6 games into the season, Logan. Actually, yeah, RSL and Montreal have only played 5, and they've given up the most goals. They have a real shot, with the way that they're pacing out, to have worse goals given up than DC did last season, right? So that's worrying if you're a Montreal fan or an RSL fan. They're getting absolutely blown out of games, right? RSL's given up 13. Let's see, they just gave up 4, so they had 9 before that in 4 games. That's awful. Even Colorado, who got blown out in one of the first games of the season, they've still only given up 8. Colorado, their problem is scoring. They've only scored 2 goals. SKC has only scored 2 goals. RSL even has only scored 3 goals. Same thing with LA. So there's some teams down there. Montreal have only scored 3. Those are the lowest of goals scored, is 2 and 3. And 4 of those teams are in. Now, I know the West is tough. The West is hard. But my God, that's not a good start. I think Montreal can actually be one of the worst teams ever this season. Looking good. They looked good against the Union. That was it. But other than that, they've looked really lost. Giving up 12 goals is crazy. They haven't had a draw yet. They've had 1 win and 4 losses. That's not fun. Their 1 win was their only game at home, by the way. So maybe they'll have some more wins at home, because the rest of their 4 games have been on the road, Montreal. So, maybe it's a little overreaction. I don't know. But we are 6 games in here. That's the worst away record that I see. Miami also has a 3 losses record, no wins away from home. Houston has 3 losses away from home with no wins. But the worst is Montreal. Most teams haven't played that many away games, though, so I'm not sure why Montreal has played 4 out of their 5 away from home. That seems kind of odd. But yeah, so that's your East. Now, if we look at the West now, Louis in first with 15 points. They've won 5, they lost 1, no draws still. They've only given up 5 goals. They're doing pretty good on that. They've still scored 15. Pretty good start for them. Seattle in 17. They are only 2 points behind. LAFC, by the way, has a game in hand. So does Minnesota. They both have 11 points in 3rd and 4th place. So with a game in hand, they can leapfrog Seattle and sit 1 point behind St. Louis. So it's going to be pretty, again, this is the West. It's going to be pretty tight at the top. I think eventually those 4 teams might be the best in the West. San Jose sit 5th with 10. Who would have thought that, right? Dallas in 6th with 8. Austin in 7th with 7. Houston in 8th with 6. Vancouver in 9th with 6. And then out of the playoff spots, you have Portland in 10th with 5. Salt Lake in 11th with 3. LA in 12th with 3. SKC in 13th with 3 points. And Colorado in 14th with 3 points. What's your biggest surprise, other than maybe St. Louis, over here in the West, Logan?
Oh, I mean, I guess I got to go with Minnesota United because, I mean, they're missing their best player and one of the best players in this league in Emmanuel Reynoso. And they've really just not missed a beat this season and beating teams that,
they've actually been better.
Yeah, right. It's kind of wild just because they beat an undefeated St. Louis, which I felt like that was coming eventually for St. Louis. I thought it was going to come against Seattle, but Minnesota goes to a very tough St. Louis and beats them. They drew with Vancouver. That looks even better now. They beat the Rapids. They've tied with the Red Bull, and then they also beat Dallas. And I think Dallas is a pretty decent team. So, I'm shocked that Minnesota United has had this start to the season. And again, mostly because they're missing their key piece. But Minder Garcia scored 2 goals and it's looked pretty good. Luis Almeria. They've gotten goals, Jordan, which they've kind of struggled to get and find consistency with the number 9. We thought that if they could add a number 9 to Reynoso's mix, that this team could actually take it to the next level, especially if they start playing better defensively. And in this season, they really have. They've only given up 3 goals, which is massive for a defense that is usually pretty average. And I think Boxall hadn't been playing because he was with, I want to say he's from New Zealand or somewhere. He's playing internationally. So I think it's been a really good season for the Loons. And I think that's something that jumps out at me because of how good they've been. They've got one of the best young goalkeepers in the league in Dane St. Clair, who I think is a stud. And if he's not behind Maxime Crepeau, I think he's the starting candidate for the Canadian national team. So again, I'm really impressed with Minnesota United. I think Adrian Heath has this team playing finally in a way that it's more team oriented, but I love it because I think it's worked well for them. And they're a really tough team to go and play at Minnesota. So I don't know, to sit 4th, I'm feeling pretty good about Minnesota. I don't think that it gets much better than that, but I do think that with this, they'll find some consistency and maybe finish around that 4 to 5 spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and say so far it's got to be, for me, between Houston and San Jose. Minnesota has been usually consistently good. I know I didn't have them picked out to do as well this year, but the fact that San Jose right now is up there, and the fact that Houston's more of like just because the bottom of the West still hasn't have enough points, but Houston's been kind of impressive. At home, they've won 2, right? 2 in a row, but they lose 3 on the road. So I'm kind of split more on Houston. I have to lean more towards San Jose as being like the surprise team in the West. They're only 1 point behind Minnesota. They still have a negative goal differential. That's got to get sorted out some. They've lost 2 games on the road, but they're 3 wins and a draw at home. I don't know. I'm liking what I'm seeing from them. I don't think they're going to be super great, but I think it's like, okay, they have a coach, they have a GM, there's building blocks, right? That they continue to put in place. I think eventually San Jose can be a really good team if they follow through with this plan and get some results. which I hope they do, because I think it'd be kind of crazy if they had to start over yet again. So I don't know. I think San Jose for me would be like a huge surprise if they keep up the way that they're going. I did want to highlight some news that just came in right before we started recording that Sporting Kansas City has waived Ben Sweat, by the way. So he's no longer on the roster. So that's pretty big, I guess. Guess he wasn't cutting it. All right. Before we preview these next games, just kind of want to remind people, I know that, if you're listening to the podcast version, this has already happened, but kicking off in 9 minutes is Philadelphia hosting Atlas. Not very confident about that game, but the first leg is at home for Philly. That's probably worse as well, what you need yet. I like playing the first game away. So that's going on right now. Open Cup is going on. Hartford versus Lansdowne. Hartford's leading 1-0. Memphis is beating Knoxville right now. Miami FC is drawing with Jacksonville under 23s 1-1 right now. Detroit, Gold Star are facing off. They're drawn 0-0 so far. And the Rowdies are facing off against Nona, and that's 0-0 15 minutes in. So that's cool. Charles later tonight, San Antonio versus Club de Leon. I just found out when I was doing the closed pyramid, by the way. Club de Leon is a Orlando club. Would have never guessed that with that name. New Mexico is facing off against UDA Soccer, and Club Leon, not Club de Leon, but Club Leon from Mexico, is in their CONCACAF Champions League Leg 1 against Violet at 10 p.m. tonight. So there you go. Tomorrow we got even more Open Cup games, like my Maryland Bobcats going up against Ocean City Nor'easters. We have Charlotte Independence going up against Appalachian. Indy 11 going up against Michigan Stars. Loudoun going up against North Carolina. Louisville going up against Lexington. Pittsburgh versus Rochester. That is forfeited for Rochester because they're kind of going by the wayside here. Chattanooga versus Birmingham. South Georgia Tormenta versus Rio Grande Valley FC. Des Moines versus Chattanooga. Omaha versus El Paso. Tulsa versus Tulsa. That's fun. Colorado versus Northern Colorado. Central Valley versus Monterey Bay. Las Vegas versus LA Force. Orange County versus Capo FC. Sacramento Republic versus Crossfire. San Diego versus Albion San Diego. And then in the Champions League, Vancouver hosts 10 Leg 1 on April 5th. Phoenix hosts Greenville in the Open Cup. Richmond Kickers going with Cleveland in the Open Cup on Thursday. Lots of midweek action as we get some Open going on. But let's go ahead and preview the MLS Saturday matches.
It's time for the Match of the Week preview.
Match of the Week previews where we tell you what game you should be watching this week. We'll also tell you what games are free. But Cincinnati hosts Philadelphia at 7:30. That's on MLS Season Pass, of course. DC versus Columbus. 7:30, LAFC hosting Austin. That's free, and it's also on Fox. Miami hosting Dallas at 7:30. That's free as well on Apple TV. New England hosting Montreal. New York Red Bulls hosting the San Jose Earthquakes. New York City FC hosting Atlanta. Chicago hosting Minnesota. That's free. Houston hosting LA Galaxy. Kansas City hosting Colorado at 8:30. Nashville hosting Toronto at 8:30. RSL hosting Charlotte at 9:30. That's free. Seattle hosting St. Louis at 10:30. That's free. And Vancouver hosting Portland at 10:30. That is also free. No games on Easter, by the way. These are all on Saturday, the 8th. Oh, so what do you pick, Logan? What's the one that got your eye here?
This one's interesting just because, There's one that's really good, but I think I'm going to leave that one. If you don't mention it, then I guess it gets an honorable mention. But I'm really interested in this LAFC and Austin match. It is going to be played at BMO Stadium, so it's going to be played in LA. It's the rematch, Jordan, of the Western Conference Finals from last year, when which LAFC absolutely smashed in Austin 3-0. Austin not playing very well to start the season, Jordan, and they've really kind of struggled here of late. They had a draw and a loss in the last two matches. The draw coming against a Colorado team that's not looked great. And then they got absolutely smashed in by the Houston Dynamo, the cross-state rivals. So they got bounced by Violet in the CCL. They couldn't beat a semi-professional team. This fan base is wolf out again. It's been a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden this fan base has kind of turned on their head coach, turned on this team. And they just don't look the same that they once did. They don't look like they've got the firepower. And again, we've all kind of questioned this coming into the season. What was that going to look like if Sebastian Giroussi comes back down to earth? And we've gotten the answer so far. He's not been that crazy, insane MVP kind of caliber player that we've seen in the past. In 450 minutes, he's got a goal and an assist, and just hasn't really looked himself. And I think that's been a big issue for them. On the LAFC side, on the flip side, they've started the season really well, kind of been up and down. But again, with CONCACAF Champions League, I think that this team sitting third, I guarantee you that the Union would take a third spot in the East right now. With the way that LAFC has been playing, they play Vancouver midweek and CCL. So you're probably going to see some rotation here. But if Austin lose to a rotated LAFC squad, Jordan, I think we're starting to get into that conversation where, third season in, Austin really struggled mightily in their first year. Was last year a fluke? Was last year just a really good season from Sebastian Giroussi? And did they just put it together one season and then, this club is kind of dropped towards the bottom, and they're flirting with danger. They're flirting with that 9th playoff spot already. So some trouble in Austin. I think LAFC, man, do they look good. I think that they continue to look good. Boanga's looked fantastic, probably an MVP caliber player already. If Thiago Almada leaves, I think there's no other option besides Boanga. So I know that Denis Boanga has been fantastic. They're probably going to rotate the squad, so it might not be the glaring matchup that you want, but I think it's going to be an interesting one just because it's going to be an LAFC. There's going to be rotation. I still think Austin loses this match.
Yeah, there's only 3 undefeated teams in MLS so far. I said Cincinnati earlier. In the West, it's LAFC and Minnesota. So we'll see how that goes. So still have not lost. They did draw with the Rapids 0-0. That wasn't great, but they were able to still get a point, which is always good, I think, when you can go away from home and get a point. Can I be basic? I think I'm going to be basic here. I'm picking Seattle St. Louis. This is a battle.
I was hoping you'd pick that one.
I know it's early. But it's a battle at the top. 2 points separate them. St. Louis is not drawn yet, by the way, so they can still get their first draw for the season. But I am very excited to see how this one plays out. St. Louis let me down. I picked them last week against Minnesota. I said this will be a really good game. Well, came down to a penalty kick, right? That's how Minnesota won that game. So it wasn't, the type, they were putting goals away against St. Louis. So I was kind of disappointed for that. I was kind of rooting for them in that game. No disrespect to Minnesota fans. I just thought it was a cool story if they were to get another win, and we could keep this train going every week of when are they going to lose? Well, they lost. But when you're looking at the stats, Seattle usually has more possession than St. Louis. Like St. Louis is averaging 45, Seattle's averaging. But St. Louis has been averaging more shots, 14.8 to 13.2. So round up just 15 to 13, right? It's kind of where St. Louis sits on shots. They also have more shots on goal, like 6 to 5. So that'll be interesting. What will win out? Will we get a draw? Their stats are pretty even. That's a possibility. When we're talking about passing, accuracy. Seattle has better accuracy. They have better blocked shots, so they're, making better saves. They have more passes than St. Louis, so I would give the edge to Seattle. Seattle is going to be at home. But where this really comes down to, and I think why it's cool that they lost against Minnesota, it's not how do you react, right? How do you react now that you lost your first game? You had everything going your way for the first 5 games. Can you get into a tough environment and get a draw? If I'm St. Louis, that's what I want. I mean, obviously you want to win, right? But going into Lumen Field, that's going to be tough. You're going up against a really good team in the West. Jordan Morris looks like Jordan Morris of old. He's scoring goals for fun, which is exactly what Seattle needed because Bears, was injured earlier. I think he still is. Then you have Rui Diaz, who hasn't really been scoring. So to have Jordan Morris like back in form, scoring goals is exactly what Seattle needed. And that's probably, I probably have to give the edge to Seattle here, but I'll be curious just to see how St. Louis responds to a loss, a loss at home too. That's why I gave them the edge last time. I'm like, you're at home. You just been blowing teams out at home, scoring goals. Holds in there, wins the game. Okay. Now you're going to the toughest place in the West pretty much to play. Can you do it? And I think, unfortunately for St. Louis, they can't. I do think Seattle is going to win the game. But I could see St. Louis at least getting a draw. I just can't see St. Louis getting a win.
Jordan Morris has 8 goals already, Jordan.
It's crazy.
That's nuts. 8 goals.
I knew he was one of my favorite players, other than just his name being Jordan.
Who's the next leading scorer behind Jordan Morris?
In the league or on Seattle?
In the league.
Oh, in the league.
I can give you a hint that they're playing in the same match this weekend.
Oh, is it Klaus?
Yeah, 5 goals for Klausy.
Yeah.
So, man, what a scoring parade we might be in for. It might be.
Who's the second most on Seattle? Do you know?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna guess. Is it Nuhu?
Yeah.
No. Is it really?
No.
Oh, I was gonna say, holy crap!
He has not scored in his history. Bear.
Really?
He's only
With
played
that
2
fast
games.
Start. That's really
2 goals in 2 games, right?
Wow.
They've only 12 goals, 8 of those to Jordan Morris. Then you have Leo Chu and Christian Roldan, both with 1 goal each. So if Jordan Morris isn't on fire this game, maybe they don't win it, right? Like that's what they're going to have to hope for is that Jordan Morris is playing well because he's got 8 of their 12 goals.
Yeah.
That's insane.
U.S. men's national team would be following that closely. Like,
Oh, yeah. Did you see Balogun is following Pulisic now?
Yeah.
On Instagram.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Got something going.
Yeah. Balogun. U.S. men's national team. Number 9 striker. We needed one to fall into our lap, Jordan, and I think we got one. We've talked about this forever. U.S. men's national team fans out there, what do you guys think? You think he's coming? I think he's coming. I don't think there's any doubt now. I think it's pretty much a done deal. Came to the United States.
I think it's a good shot. I'm not celebrating until he's scoring goals. Right? I'm gonna have to wait to score goals here.
I'm getting you a Balogun
jersey, customized jersey.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Balogun's number 1 fan.
I tell you, Union fans have been clamoring for Blake jerseys forever.
Yeah.
They usually don't sell goalkeeper kits. They finally start selling goalkeeper kits, and what happens? They had to delay the customizations on them for like a whole other week or more. So now people can't still get the Blake jerseys.
And then he got hurt. Look what you did.
Yeah, he got hurt. He's back.
He is back. Look good too. Look good.
Yeah.
That's important.
Wish the rest of the team did.
Maybe tonight. We'll see.
Yes, they're about to play. I think they may have kicked off.
I was gonna say it about right now.
I don't know. Does CONCACAF Champions League kick off on normal time?
We don't know the answer to that question, Jordan. That is maybe MLS Gone Wild knows.
Yeah, might have a connection. I'm scrolling over to it, and did they? kickoff yet? No, doesn't look like it. All right, well, up on Ted Lasso, Logan. New episode of Ted Lasso drops tomorrow. We'll talk about it sometime before the next one drops after that. But we just released our episode 2 and episode 3 recap of season 3 on our YouTube and podcast links. They went up yesterday and today, so you can catch up with those. We had fun talking about Zava. We had fun talking about some spooky psychic stuff too. So if you are a Ted Lasso fan, you can hear our thoughts on what the future may hold for some of these characters. I did the Closed Pyramid on Sunday as well, so that was up. That's going to be every other week at this point. I ranted on there about the scheduling of Nisa, where we're going sometimes 3 weeks without a game for the Bobcats. Sometimes 3 days later they're playing another game and then it's another layoff. So I was kind of really upset with that and how that can affect the growth of some of these as well. So there was a little bit of a rant with that. So you can check that out on YouTube or on the podcast links. We will be back next week. Logan's too busy for me midweek, so that's why we previewed the games. That's why we previewed the games this week, right now. But yes, we will be back next week to talk about these fun games that we just picked. And then, is there anything else coming up big? I guess we'll quickly talk Open Cup and Champions League stuff that happened. But yeah, I think that's everything. We don't have any big international stuff coming up, so quick thoughts. Did you see the new US jerseys for the women?
I did.
You like them?
They're a lot better than the ones the men's wore, but I don't like them. No,
yeah, slightly better than the men's one. Also, yes, Olive and York teamed back up with Chris Bunn, by the way, those kits for the World Cup, and he made some really cool designs for the female World Cup, for the women's World Cup. So go ahead and check that out. Go to Olive and York. They're going to be putting orders up there. They have like this red kit that instead of the Declaration of Independence, it's a list of each state, like, all the states listed out. Looks really cool. Really good stuff. They just make really good jerseys. I'm so happy that somebody's doing something at least. But if you want to give us any sort of feedback, you can reach us at Stateside Show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And email us, statesideshow@gmail.com. Thank you all for listening or watching, and we will catch you next week.